In a real estate transaction, it is knowledge and preparation that help reduce stress and anxiety. Moving from one home to another has enough stress and chaos built into the entire affair, so you certainly don't need to find ways to add stress to your move. But I have to warn you, the home inspection is often the biggest stressor. If you have not bought or sold a home in years, but plan on becoming active in the housing market, you will likely find the home inspection process to be both frustrating and intimidating. Fortunately, it does not have to be this way. Today, I'm going to share with you my top 10 issues and tips on home inspections, and this is advice for both buyers and sellers alike. Follow my guidance and you'll cruise right through the home inspection process in a silky smooth fashion. Fail to do so, and you're going to face pressure, stress, and likely a loss of money. Why? Because people do not move very often, so they do not have a lot of experience with inspections and inspection reports. Sellers have a tendency to take the list of issues as an affront to their upkeep of the home, while buyers often see the list of imperfections as a reason to believe they found a home in gross disrepair. Neither should be approaching the inspection report with these thoughts. Please take this advice to heart, as it will prepare you for the home inspection process and put you in the right frame of mind to either sell or buy a home without the inspection adding to your list of worries. Face it, there is no perfect home, whether it is yours or one that you plan to buy, so be prepared for a good home inspector to find the problems that need to be addressed before both sides are comfortable closing on the home. Here is something that home sellers should consider. Most of the contracts we execute are as is, meaning the seller is not warranting the condition of the home and is not contractually required to fix anything that the buyer finds during a home inspection. Unfortunately, life is just not this simple. Pay close attention to this next point if you plan on selling a home. It could save you a lot of time, anguish, and money. What I'm about to tell you will have you shaking your head in disagreement at first, but listen closely, because this is important for home sellers to understand. I explained to sellers that it is always the seller who pays for large repairs. It doesn't matter what the contract says about inspections or warranties or property conditions. All that matters is that you have a simple understanding of supply and demand. The buyer will pay fair market value, more or less, for your home. If the buyer has to pay too far above that fair market value, the buyer will leave for a better deal. It really is that simple. So regardless of what the contract says, the buyer will use the inspection clause or another one to terminate the contract if the deal is no longer attractive. Now, I'm not talking about the tiny little issues that buyers will pay for. I'm talking about the big ticket items that impact the fair market value of the home. For example, a buyer who has agreed to pay you $400,000 for a home does so in anticipation of what the property inspection will say. A buyer expects some small issues, which the buyer will have to pay to repair. But if the inspection says the home needs $50,000 worth of foundation work, you can pretty much bet the buyer will ask you to repair the foundation or reduce the price accordingly. And if you're unwilling, the buyer will likely terminate the contract. After all, would you pay $400,000 plus $50,000 foundation repair just for the privilege of owning a $400,000 home? In my 30 years of brokering tens of thousands of homes in Tallahassee, I've not seen that happen. Ultimately, because buyers will inspect a home before removing the contingency on the contract, sellers must understand that the contract was made based upon a relative assumption of good working order. When problems exist beyond this level, it will be the seller who pays. And here's why. The seller can tell the buyer that the seller's not willing to pay for anything. The buyer will then ask for a reduction in price, meaning the seller's paying through reduced sales proceeds, or the buyer will terminate the contract. And this leaves the seller in an interesting position. In Florida, the seller is required to disclose to all buyers all known issues that materially affect its value. So this new inspection issue found by the buyer will have to be disclosed to future buyers should the current contract terminate. Make sure you understand what I'm saying here. The law requires the seller to tell interested buyers about the problems the most recent inspection has found, so the seller will be in the same position with the next buyer as he was with the first buyer who ordered the home inspection. Again, the seller will be the one paying to resolve the problem. The moral of the story for home sellers is that the seller can sell the home for fair market value or a little bit more, and the condition of the property is a factor in determining said fair market value. If a problem exists that's exposed during a home inspection, it will be the seller who pays, one way or another, unless the contract price was below fair market value by enough of a margin that the buyer still favors the deal. The relationship between supply and demand will determine how the buyer proceeds. If there's a better deal to be had, that's where the buyer's going to go. When counseling our home sellers, we recommend that they order a home inspection before putting the home on the market. This will allow the seller to control the narrative and to ensure that competitive bids are received for any costly issues that are found in the inspection. The time lost to the inspection gives the listing agent time to pre-market the home, and thus this does not hurt the seller in any way. Our longtime viewers have heard me mention pre-marketing during the preparation stage in several past videos. It's important for home sellers who want to get top dollar for their homes. And by the way, if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing now so that you get all the content when it's fresh and most relevant. Here's what I tell my buyers about home inspections before we sit down and analyze the home inspection report. I want them to remain calm and rational as they see the home dissected and exposed by a seasoned home inspector. The main purpose of a home inspection is to give the buyer the information needed to make an informed decision on the purchase. Most home inspectors focus on the major defects that will cost the buyer a lot of money above the purchase price to repair. My recommendation is to place defects found into 3 separate categories. First, things that will materially impact the value of the home that you will require the seller to fix or for which you will get a credit from the seller. Of course, I'm not talking about the things you knew about before you placed your offer and negotiated a contract, rather just those that the home inspector found and brought to your attention. For example, if you went to contract well below market value because it was understood that the home needed a new roof, you would not request the seller to replace the roof. But if your home inspector found a significant fault with the HVAC system, you would want to request the seller to repair or replace the units necessary to bring the HVAC to good working condition. Number 2, things that you believe need to be repaired right away for your better enjoyment of the home. You will be paying for these yourself, as they are likely cosmetic and do not have significant impact on the value of the home. But again, you will like these to be done as soon as possible. Number 3, the final group of issues falls into your honey-do list, as they are issues the home inspector found that you'll want to fix at some point in time. A good example of this type of issue is fogged windows. The windows work fine, they're just unsightly, and your view from the home, as well as the view into your home, would be better were they were repaired or replaced. If you keep this categorization in mind, you'll find sellers far more agreeable when entertaining only those items that fall within the first point on this list. If you ask for items in group 2 or 3, you'll lose. The seller will reject them and then possibly counter back with less assistance for items in the first group. Remember, supply and demand will dictate how much you can expect the seller to do. Now let's get on to my top 10 home inspection issues and tips. The advice I have already provided will serve you well in your overall preparation for receiving a home inspection report. The following 10 tips are far more specific and address issues that you might encounter in your next real estate transaction. Issue number 1, buyers who find and select their own home inspector. Property inspectors are not all alike, and if you decide to bring your own, you could end up very frustrated. We sell many hundreds of homes each year, so we have a pool of property inspectors that understand our standards and who work very hard for our buyers and sellers. Generally speaking, they get so much business from the best real estate agents in town that they rarely advertise, so the ones you find in advertising might not be the ones you want to hire. Our experience with inspectors selected without our input is that they typically charge a lot more and they take longer to schedule, which could cause you to miss a deadline in your contract. And they produce poor quality handwritten reports that are not very useful in contract negotiations. Take the time to interview real estate agents for the job of helping you buy a home. Select the best one and then follow his or her guidance on who will best serve your needs for a home inspection. Issue number 2. Buyer's agents who believe that their job is to battle with the listing agent and get repairs or concessions at all costs. At first blush, this might sound good to you. As a home buyer, you want an agent that will save you money and get you the best deal possible, right? You want to know that your buyer's agent is working for your best interests. Unfortunately, fighting to win concessions when the seller will definitely say no fails to make it a better deal for you, and more importantly, causes you to lose leverage in the negotiations because you overreached your position. A smart, experienced, highly productive buyer's agent will understand exactly what repairs they can get the seller to do. If your agent overreaches, the seller will tell them no to everything, including repairs they would have approved, terminate the contract, and then sell the home to another buyer. Now, on the other hand, if they are too soft, you don't get everything possible from the seller. That's why hiring the right agent is so important at this stage of the game. They have to understand what they can and cannot get for you. It has been my experience that agents doing their first few transactions rarely handle the post-inspection negotiations very well. Number 3, you must marry up market conditions with the intended use of the home inspection. Many real estate agents are one-trick ponies, trying to negotiate the few sales that they do in the same manner that they learned in the past. But times change. Market cycles change. These changes require a different outlook on the home inspection process. In a buyer's market, the home inspection served as a tool to use to renegotiate with the seller. But not today. Today, a home inspection is an insurance policy that is designed to give you confidence that you're getting the full value that you're paying. In some cases, it does require renegotiation. Just remember though, you probably beat multiple other buyers competing for the home, and the seller is more than happy to let one of them buy it if you're too difficult to work with. Number 4, major components of the home that are in good, serviceable condition but are aged close to or beyond their life expectancy. Examples of this could be a well-functioning older roof or a perfectly functioning 12-year-old HVAC system. The home inspector will remark that a component is nearing the end of its serviceable life based on age, even though the component is working fine. This often spooks buyers and they think they need to have it replaced. That is a decision the buyer will need to make, but the seller, in today's market, won't want to hear it. If all is working well, why would the seller replace it? It's more cost-effective today to replace a buyer than it is to replace a roof. Issue number 5. Crawl spaces almost always have issues. Some inspectors will not go on the roof, in the attic, or in crawl spaces either due to a physical deficiency or because they have outaged the requirements of the job. First and foremost, make sure you hire an inspector that goes everywhere, in, on, above, and below the home. Crawl spaces often hide water or foundation issues, and you don't want to discover those after the sale is closed. We once had a home inspector go into a crawl space on a house with a newly remodeled bathroom. The bathroom looked beautiful. However, the shower drain was not connected to the sewer pipe down below. Every time the shower was used, water just drained directly into the crawl space. This work had actually been inspected and permitted. It's a good thing we used a home inspector who crawled over every inch of that property. Tip number 6, homes with polybutylene pipes, PB piping, create a financial liability for the homeowner. PB is a form of plastic that was used in residential plumbing systems from 1978 to 1995. These pipes are too fragile to withstand common disinfectants found in the public water supply and become brittle and crack from the inside out. Leaks in PB pipes that are located underneath your home can cause severe structural damage. In certain neighborhoods and in certain areas, there remain homes with PB piping. So if you find a home with PB piping, this is a must-fix or fund for the seller. Issue number 7, drainage issues, erosion, especially on sloped lots, and negative grades on foundations where the ground around the home slopes towards the house. Historically, water damage is one of the most active claims on hazard insurance policies in Florida. The home inspector will look for areas that could have current water damage or could likely cause future water damage. When these issues are found, look to the home seller's property disclosure to see what has occurred in the past and ask what the inspector thinks should be done to resolve any issues. Issue number 8, defective siding. For example, synthetic stucco and LP siding. Much like PB piping, there have been some inferior products used to cover the exterior of homes. While most of it has been repaired or replaced by now, there still remain homes with this defective siding that could be hiding a nightmare behind its facade. If an inspector finds that a home has one of these inferior products, you need to approach the seller for a solution process before paying for further inspections. An ignorant seller is likely to think, how can it be defective? It's been on the home for 25 years and still looks great. Unfortunately, there could be major issues behind the siding, and you'll need to work out an agreement before ordering the siding-specific inspection. Issue number 9, lack of permits on work done even prior to the existing owner. We run across this one from time to time, and it's never enjoyable. The most common form of this is an enclosed room on the back of the home where the work was done without a building permit. This means that the local authority is not aware that this work has been performed, and thus the work is not properly licensed and acknowledged by the tax collector. The burden to acquire the permits is borne by the owner, so a buyer wants to require the seller to get said permits prior to closing. If not, the burden falls on the new owner. And this is where the real problem starts. If the work was not done to standard, the owner of the home might be required to have significant work done to bring it up to code. Imagine if you owned a home for 10 years with a nice living room on the back, and when you go to sell it, you find out that the buyer wants the permits for the work. But you didn't do the work, the prior owner did. So you go down to the county to get your permits, only to find they've never been issued. The county then sends an inspector out who tells you it's not built to code and that you either need to remove it or bring in a licensed contractor to pull permits and bring it up to code. Ouch. So much for closing on time. Issue number 10, cracked driveways. This one always surprises me when a buyer asks for a seller to replace a driveway, and you'd think after selling homes for 30 years, I would not get surprised. This is how it usually comes about. A buyer and an agent go look at a home, walk through every single room, imagining new flooring, new paint, where the furniture will go, what appliance will stay, what appliances will go, decide which kids go into which rooms, and then decide that this is the home for them. In many cases, they sit right down at the dining room table and work up an offer on the home. Other times, they return to the real estate office to produce the offer there. After negotiating an agreement with the seller, they send a property inspector out who reports back saying the driveway is cracked. And then the buyer decides a new driveway would be nice. When the agent makes the request for a new driveway, I simply ask, wasn't it cracked when you made the offer? I can tell you that the condition of the driveway, unless it looks like the Grand Canyon, is not something that is going to be materially affecting the value of the home, and prudent sellers will neither fix, replace, nor fund its replacement. So buyers shouldn't ask. It only weakens their position in the negotiations. As a bonus, I've included an 11th issue and tip. And this issue is wood rot. You see, Tallahassee finds itself among the leaders for cities with high average humidity. We average a whopping 91% humidity in the morning and 75% all day. So I often equate living here to living in a dog's mouth. Thank goodness for air conditioning. The fact that a home inspector finds wood rot should not surprise anybody in real estate, but it is often worrisome for first-time home buyers. Do not go into a home inspection hoping the inspector will not find wood rot. Instead, go in wondering how much wood rot the inspector will find and what needs to be done to correct it. The wood rot might or might not be an issue that you need to address with the seller. Just let your real estate buyer's agent guide you on this. If the damage is relatively small, you have to ask yourself, do you really want to lose the home on a few boards that need to be replaced? Today, we're experiencing the strongest seller's market of all time, so buyers need to understand that they will likely not be able to turn to sellers for repairs, as the sellers have plenty of other buyers to whom they can sell the home. I hope I've helped you better understand some of the issues you will find when reviewing a home inspection. The key is to hire a buyer's agent who helps you to keep a level head by categorizing the issues that you find and focusing you on the negotiation points that you can win. Always remember to consider current housing market conditions, specifically the relationship between the supply and demand for homes, before deciding how to address each issue. If you would like to see a video about different negotiation strategies under changing market conditions, you can view it by clicking on the box in the top left corner of your screen. For a video on how to make an offer in a seller's market, just click on the box below it. Please remember to like this video, check out the links below it, and subscribe to our channel so that you never miss anything.